Hey Scott, what movie are we talking about today?
Well, Synthel, we've got a treat for you. It's actually it's Poultrygeist.
Yeah,
It's a
Poultrygeist
trauma
is
film. It's a trauma film. So you know it's going to be bad but good, right? So this film came out in 2006. It's a Lloyd Kaufman, right? So we're talking, Toxic Avenger, Nukem High. This film, it let's be honest, Simple. It checks every box.
it not only does it check every box in terms of deeply disturbing movies. Yeah, this from I was trying to compare this to the Call Girl of Cthulhu and the Greasy Strangler, and I think this blows them both out of the water in terms of gruesomeness, making you squeamish whenever you watch this. There are many scenes in here that I just like holy crud, I can't believe they just filmed that. And what's worth mentioning is that this is a $500,000 movie, and they do so much. There's so much practical effects in this that's just gruesome as all anything I've ever seen. And it is by the original schlock horror movie producers, Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hurst, and from Trauma Entertainment. And I think I would just have to say I was traumatized right down to my core.
I don't know if I was traumatized, but I will say if you're looking for a movie that has a lot of great gore, a lot of very cheap but cool special effects, and tons of TNA, you can never go wrong with a trauma flick. And Poultrygeist, I mean, it has it all. I mean, it over sexualizes everything. It pulls no punches. If you get easily offended because they're making fun of a cultural type or a gender type, this is a film you want to avoid because they don't pull punches with anybody in this. And I think one of the funniest characters in this is the Muslim lady who is cooking fried chicken, right? But I'm going to say, I mean, it's brazen in the way that it does things.
It's absolutely insults everybody. It insults Muslims, it insults Indians, it insults Mexicans, insults women, insults vegans and vegetarians. I think it's even insulting meat eaters at the end of the day. I'm not sure if it really had a purpose other than just to shock the audience right down to the core. There's a great line in there about the chicken having declared jihad on everybody. Um, there are no punches pulled.
No, there's none.
There's a comment about a burqa wearing bimbo murderer. We just say that you're going to get offended. It's not possible not to get offended, but it's a great movie.
I would. It's so simple. In all honesty, this film was made in 2006. Do you think it would have any shot of being made today?
No, not at all. There's so much, not just in who it insults, but the level of disturbing practical effects. As an example, there are two great scenes where the shot is from a really overweight guy sitting on a toilet, and the camera is looking up at his butt crack as
Yeah.
he's having horrific diarrhea. And that's a good characteristic of a trauma film. And there are two shots like this, and one of them was actually censored. I saw this on Vudu, and I couldn't believe what I saw. And so I think this is the grandmaster of all schlock disturbing horror.
So interesting to me was I couldn't find this film anywhere but on Vudu.
Yeah.
And I've never used Vudu before. And I will say I was impressed. They've got quite the movie thing in there. It's actually owned by Fandango. I didn't know that Fandango owned that. But you can find a lot of old films there, like Cannibal Holocaust and others at no cost. I mean, you have to watch the commercials. So this one is available on Vudu through there. And it doesn't, I mean, there's no, it's not edited. You're seeing the full film. So Cynthia, when we start talking about special effects in this movie, what was one of the ones that really you saw it and you went, I can't believe they did this for $500,000?
There were many scenes like that. All of the zombie chicken effects, skin peeling off the faces, holy moly, the broomsticks going up some guy's back end, a hand going up completely up one guy's back end, I don't know if it's prosthetics or not, but there were genital shots in there. I have no idea how Lloyd Kaufman managed to pull off this movie at $500,000 with just incredibly disturbing practical effects from the start of the movie all the way to the end.
Yeah, and so to me, I thought one of the best practical effects in this film that I kept going, how they do that, was when the guy's genitals are replaced with a broomstick and it becomes a broomstick penis,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I'm like, well, how did they, you would look at it and go, oh, that's easy to do. No, the way that it was really well done. But also the deep fryer scene,
Yep.
and the meat grinder scene.
The
I
meat
went,
grinder.
wow, that's impressive as all get out. And for $500,000. The other thing I will say is too, that every character in here played up their stereotype to a T. So the Native American, the alcoholic Native American, the Muslim lady, I gotta give props, because they all played those characters to their absolute worst stereotypes.
They did, every single one of them. The lead character, whose name is Arby, and
Yes.
they happen to be doing a fast food chicken movie. Ron Jeremy makes a cameo in the movie. Every single actor absolutely just did a fantastic job of selling it. We've talked about, and maybe this is obvious, clearly they're not looking to make a real horror movie in the scary sense. And this isn't scary. It's disturbingly gruesome. And it's absolutely trying to offend you and disturb you and make your skin crawl in virtually every single scene. And that's what makes it fairly unique. It makes no apologies at all.
So, Simple, I want to add, so here's an interesting thing I've always found about trauma films. Trauma films are horror,
Yep.
and they're always low budget, and they're always gruesome. But what I have found about them is they try to push this as far as they can, right? As gruesome as they can, but they don't get to the levels of. So one thing I would say is the gore factor is high, but it's most times when you're watching it, it's almost comedic gore, right? They don't take it to that Saw level where it's torture. It's so for me, I've always seen trauma films is that they are trying to absolutely push the gag factor up as high as they can, but not to the point where you're squirming from uncomfortableness from the scenario, but from the practical effects that you're watching, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great example. It's not a Saw type of movie. The practical effects are so over the top, unrealistic. You talked about the meat grinder, the face being pushed on the meat slicer.
Yeah.
The hand going all the way up somebody's backside and coming out the mouth and killing somebody. All of those are just ridiculously over the top and unrealistic. And they're difficult to watch, not because it's torture porn, but because it's so incredibly well done effects that it looks realistic and makes you squirm.
So I don't know if you remember, but when they did the Toxic movie, Toxic Avenger, there was a scene where the bullies are driving their, I believe it was a Mustang, and they hit the kid on the bicycle and they reverse and roll over the kid's head. And they showed that on film, right? I remember the outrage when that film first came out, because nobody could believe they actually showed, a kid's head being rolled over by a car. And you go back and look at that and you go, it's still pretty damn realistic. It's pretty realistic. So they push the limits. They find ways to do it on a very slim budget. And to me, I've never seen a really bad, let me take that back. Every trauma film is really bad. They're all horrible. I've never seen one though that I wouldn't go back and rewatch again.
I would definitely rewatch this, as disturbing as it was. In fact, when I was looking up what Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hurst were doing now, they've got a Toxic Avenger remake coming starring Peter Dinklage.
No way.
Okay, that's what, according to IMDb, yes. Peter Dinklage.
No, Peter Dinklage?
Yeah.
That's not, no. That can't be true, Senthil. That can't be true. I will pay to go see that in a movie theater.
So what's fascinating to me about that is I don't know that either the original Toxic Avenger or Poltergeist. Well, actually, let me rephrase. Neither the original Toxic Avenger nor Poltergeist would ever make it in theaters or streaming today, as it was made originally. So I'm fascinated to see how far they push the boundaries with Toxic Avenger when they remake it.
Yeah, I'm going to be really now. I'm really curious to see because I don't know, Synthel. I'm torn. I don't know if they would allow this on. I actually think it's because of the stereotypes in this that it's not on Amazon. You can't even rent it. I can't. I couldn't even rent it. So a lot of times you could go to Amazon, and you can find an old film and rent it. Nope. Um, I almost wonder if it's because it does push so hard that Amazon doesn't carry it. So it's sitting on Vudu.
It's likely, we've talked about another pioneering film of a different type, Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
Blazing Saddles couldn't be made today as it stands. And
No.
Poultrygeist, yeah, I would find it hard to see Poultrygeist being accepted on Netflix or Amazon or any of the major streaming services. I was a little surprised to see Vudu carries it because you can't even buy it off of iTunes.
No.
It's not available at all.
Nope. Nope. So, Synthel, last question. Would you suggest somebody watching this?
Absolutely, but I would warn you that this is not a date movie. Um, don't watch it with your kid or your wife unless your kid or wife knows what trauma really is about,
Yeah.
has seen Toxic Avenger and understands that this is pushing Toxic Avenger's boundaries even beyond what anybody could possibly imagine. This is gruesome. This is horrific, and I loved it.
Yeah, I loved every moment of it. And I would tell everybody to go sit down, watch it. But like you, just be aware, whole lot of sex, whole lot of stereotypes. So be just cautious of who you're watching it with.
Well, it's been fantastic once again talking to you about a movie. We'll see you next time.
All right, Senthil, thank you.